Gold is true money. Everything else is a money substitute. And the difference between legitimate currencies and fiat currencies, legitimate currencies are backed by gold.
Peter, touching on gold, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about gold returning back to the global monetary system? I mean, are we at or near a point where one way that countries can perhaps once again trust each other is through the money or the currency that they use, and gold is a neutral reserve asset? What are your thoughts about gold returning once again to the global monetary system?
Well, look, absolutely. There's no question that if we have a dollar crisis, gold is going to rise to replace the dollar as the primary international reserve asset. Not a currency, gold is true money. Everything else is a money substitute. And the difference between legitimate currencies and fiat currencies, legitimate currencies are backed by gold. Fiat currencies are not. They're backed by nothing. And so I think the world is going to go back to a gold standard for so many different reasons. And the beauty of the technology that we have today is that people can also go on a gold standard privately. You don't need the governments to do it. In fact, maybe the free market will return to the gold standard before governments, because it's very easy to have gold stored in a depository that you trust. And the owner of that depository can issue digital tokens that are on a blockchain that are backed by that gold. Each token can be 1 gram of gold, and those tokens can be easily negotiated. They can be used as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, as a store of value. And so people can easily and inexpensively transact and save in gold and silver with counterparties all around the world. Very simply, easier than they can ever do it in the past. So the technology that we have today makes a gold standard far more practical than it ever was in the past. And it worked great in the past. So it'll work even better in the future.
All right, Peter Schiff, before we wrap up, can you let the good people know how they can follow you or contact you?
Sure. Well, I do a podcast, the Peter Schiff Show podcast. I generally do at least 2 per week. You can listen for free at schiffradio.com, on my YouTube channel. If you want to get no commercials and get some extra content, you can join me on my locals community and pay $5 a month and get some premium features. More importantly, if you've got some money, if you're retired and you don't want to have to go back to work, if you want to preserve your purchasing power and maybe even profit during the rough times that lie ahead, I have an asset management company, Euro Pacific Asset Management. We're managing portfolios for investors around the world. You should give us a call and let us discuss our strategies and how they would perform a lot better than the domestic focused strategies that most people have. I think the U.S. stock and bond markets are going to be eviscerated in real terms over the balance of this decade. So people have to really rethink their retirement plans, especially if they're in these cookie cutter U.S. focused stock and bond portfolios. If you want to do it yourself, I have 5 mutual funds that I own. Those mutual funds are available on all the discount brokerage platforms, Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, you name it. My funds are there. It's the Euro Pacific Fund family. I have the Euro Pacific Value Fund, Euro Pacific Growth, Euro Pacific Dividend Income Fund, the Gold Fund, which is managed by Adrian Day, the bond fund, and I have an emerging market fund. So these funds are all specifically designed to thrive during a weak dollar, stagflation in the U.S. That's exactly what we have. We have value stocks, good dividend paying stocks, the stocks that people don't own but need to buy. You want to avoid the stocks that everybody owns and they're going to want to sell because there aren't going to be any buyers. You want to own the stocks that everybody's going to want to own, and they're going to pay much higher prices for them. And that's, I think, the way we've got our clients positioned.
Yeah, Peter, you brought up a great point, because to your credit, you said that we would see a recession in the first half of 2022. And the whole of 2022, Powell was saying things are fine. Biden was saying things are great. Why or how were you able to see through basically what could be stated as less than the truth, while so many economists, financial news channel, talking heads, and others just didn't see it?
Yeah, they weren't just saying the economy was fine. They were saying it was great. It was super strong. It was like the strongest ever. Meanwhile, we was in recession. We've been in recession all year. Now, the reason that I knew back in 2021 that the recession was going to start in the first half of 2022 was because I could see the toll that inflation was taking on consumers. Prices were rising, and so real spending was going to have to fall. And I knew that that would have adverse effects on an economy built around consumer spending. See, I also knew that inflation was here to stay. Back in 2021, the standard view was that, oh, it's transitory, don't worry about it. So the Fed was wrong on both inflation and the economy. They thought inflation was not as strong as it was, and they thought the economy was stronger than it was. So they got inflation wrong. They underestimated the strength of inflation. They overestimated the strength of the economy. But I knew that inflation would be a problem, and I also knew the rate hikes would be a problem. We have a highly levered economy, and that higher interest rates would just be another blow to households that are already struggling with higher food prices, higher gas prices. And I also knew the impact that rising mortgage rates would have on the housing market, the auto market. And so to me, a recession in the first half was obvious. And all the people that were claiming the economy was so strong, now they're pretending it's not in recession when it is. So, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And I have no idea, when they're going to admit it. They've even got the Federal Reserve reading from this playbook, claiming that we're not in recession, and still holding on to hope that they can somehow guide the economy to a soft landing when it's already crashed.